Welcome to Rainy Day Rabbit Holes, where we take the history of the West off the rails.
If you like your history unhinged, you are in the right place.
I'm Shay.
And I'm Jody.
Let's fall down the rabbit hole. A river is the most dynamic thing in nature. To block a river is the most audacious thing a human being can do. And that's from historian William Lang. It's the middle of the Great Depression. People stand for hours in lines that stretch for blocks just to receive a bowl of soup and a crust of bread. During the worst years, around 1,000 families per day lost their homes. Hope was a dying ember. But out of the ashes of despair rose a new hope for America, a project that seemed impossible, a wall of concrete across one of the continent's wildest rivers. More than a dam, it was a monument to ambition. A promise of flowers in the desert, a path out of the dark and into the light, a fortress of power. But behind its gleaming promise of jobs, lights, and victory in war lay a much darker current. This is the story of the Grand Coulee Dam, how it sculpted a region, brought life to the desert, powered the means of ultimate destruction, and drowned a way of life.
Dun, dun, dun.
I love all I have to do is look at you and you know exactly what I'm looking for. So before we get started, I have to mention someone very special. This topic was suggested by our mistress of marketing, Letha, who is like some kind of goddess and has taken over the mess that was our website and is working tirelessly to make it much better. And she is also helping us out with our marketing, so maybe our dumb little show can get a bigger audience. So, Letha, thank you so much. You are so kind, so wonderful, so devastatingly brilliant. We just can't thank you enough.
Yeah, we cannot say thank you enough. There is no appreciation that we can verbally give that would portray how we actually feel.
Yeah, every episode right now is basically dedicated to Letha. So if you need marketing services for your business, please head on over to lethadavis.com and check out her work. And one more little bit of business here. Our Patreon is the only thing funding our little show right now. We appreciate and love every one of our amazing patrons. So as a thank you, we are starting a little project. At the end of each episode, we will be including, or every couple episodes, we will be including a little fan fiction based off of our past episodes featuring a different patron each week. So if you want to be the star of a story and get the warm fuzzies by supporting the show, sign up at rainydayrabbitholes.com/support. This week, our story will be based on episode 48, Murder, Mystery, and Hollywood Tragedy, Ghostly Encounters with Ani from Audibly Haunted. And the star of this week's story is none other than, drum roll please. That's not a drum roll. What was that? She's just pointing to her mouth and laughing.
I have champagne in my mouth when it happened. I couldn't, and then I got stuck, and I couldn't swallow. I couldn't.
There we go. Matt Pearson. So make sure to listen all the way to the end of this episode for that story. Okay. On with the show and my flaccid
thank you,
microphone.
Matt Pearson.
Yes, thank you, Matt Pearson. Yes, Matt Pearson actually recently upped his monthly donation.
Well, a double thank you, Matt
So
Pearson.
he was not chosen at random for this one. The story was, but I gave this one to Matt because we wanted to show our appreciation. And he sent me some details about him that I get to use in this story. So it's very fun.
Ooh, exciting.
All right. Here we go. To get a full picture of the Grand Coulee Dam, located a bit north of Highway 2 in eastern Washington along the mighty Columbia River, we need to set the stage. I think we've all heard of the Great Depression, at least once or twice, right? Jody, you've heard of it?
Just once or twice.
Yeah. In a nutshell, it was several years of economic hardship that started in 1929, right before Herbert Hoover took office, and was kicked off in a dramatic way by the stock market crash on October 24th, known as Black Thursday. 40% of the stock market's value was wiped out in a few weeks. The Great Depression hit the Pacific Northwest a little differently than many other parts of the country. Unlike the Great Plains region, which was also dealing with the Dust Bowl, the Depression first shattered, then rebuilt the Pacific Northwest. Our region's economy had been highly dependent on the exportation of our natural resources, namely timber, as well as fishing, mining, and agriculture products. And these sectors accounted for the greatest number of job losses in the area. To try to help those affected by the Depression, the Washington State Legislature in Olympia passed a large public works project to help the unemployed and stimulate the economy, as well as passing a state income tax to take some burdens off of property taxes.
Wow.
And I'm sure you're like, wait a minute, we don't have a state income tax. What are you talking about, Shay?
I thought in my head, I was thinking, oh, wait a second. We don't have one now, which means it got revoked. That's pretty powerful. That's my fear of ever voting yes on a income tax here, or if they ever enact it here, because they're not going to take away our sales tax. They might lower it at first.
Right.
But now they just have multiple ways to raise our taxes every year instead of just one.
Right. Well, the reason that we don't have a state income tax from Depression era is because the governor at the time, Ronald Hartley, vetoed both measures.
Okay.
And so instead of allowing these measures to pass to try to help the people of the state, he just started slashing government spending. And this actually drove the region further into depression. I was
going to say, yeah.
So
at a time when everybody needed resources, we were hacking away at them.
More banks shuttered, more businesses failed, and more jobs were lost. At least 1/3 of Washington labor's force was unemployed by 1933, higher than the national average, which probably peaked around 25%. So Washington State got hit hard. There was no unemployment insurance. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes. And this is when we started to see shanty towns spring up. They were nicknamed Hooverville in honor of the president that they blamed for the predicament they were in. Seattle had a large encampment of more than 1,000 men. Yes, all men, which is probably good. And cities tried to do what they could, but before federal assistance began in 1933, they didn't have enough tax revenue to do anything. And the state was also cutting welfare budgets, which
at a time
just made things even worse. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Let's make America great again.
Just like that. I want to go back to that. And it was great.
In 1933, the Public Works Administration was created as part of the New Deal, a large-scale public works construction agency created by the National Industrial Recovery Act. It had goals to spend $3.3 billion in the first year. Remember, this was 1933. And $6 billion in all on large-scale public works projects like dams, bridges, hospitals, and schools. The main objective was to reduce unemployment by putting out-of-work Americans to work on these projects. Over the next 6 years, the PWA funded and administered more than 34,000 projects, including airports, dams, Navy warships, bridges, schools, highways, and sewage systems. Every year, it consumed half of the concrete and 1/3 of the steel of the entire nation.
Wow.
But the project that had the biggest effect on the Pacific Northwest and shaped the region is arguably the Columbia Basin project.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this project really has its roots back in 1902 with the creation of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, which was created to aid the development of dry western states. So the idea was at that time that a river that was free-flowing was wasteful. You got to put it to work.
Right, it's just running down.
That lazy river.
We need all that. And
it's a freeloader.
Yeah.
And so why not take the water, dam it, take the water, create farms where farms could not flourish before. Several areas in central Washington were competing for a dam. And after 13 years of debate, the dam project was finally authorized by President Franklin D. Roosevelt with National Recovery Act money. Construction of the Grand Coulee Dam began in 1933 and was completed in 1942. Part of the reason for the lengthy process was not only due to the massive scale of the project, but a little pause for a little war.
Small war.
A small war. The Grand Coulee is an ancient riverbed on the Columbia Plateau, created by retreating glaciers and massive floods from Lake Missoula. The earliest known proposals to irrigate the Grand Coulee date back to 1892. However, the resulting reservoir would have encroached into Canada, violating treaties, so that was scrapped.
Oh.
Not long after the Bureau of Reclamation was formed, they started scheming to use the Columbia River to irrigate parts of central Washington. An attempt to pass a bond measure to raise funds was rejected by Washington voters in 1914. Another proposal was suggested in 1917, gaining popular support in 1918.
Interesting. I have Lake Missoula, which leaked or ran into there.
Like leaked.
Yeah.
Leaked into there.
Rushed out. And so that's where my grandfather's farm is, right down in the bottom of what was Lake Missoula. So when you go over to western Montana and visit the Bison Range, which is a national park, it's a small little thing you can visit, and you drive through and you see buffalo and deer and all the wildlife that's up there. It's basically a preserve, and you drive through, but you're up on this hilltop and you can look down over Lake Missoula, or what was Lake Missoula, and you can see the ring, this big, huge ring about how big this lake was, which is now a bunch of farms at the bottom of it. But it's really crazy up there. You can see the lake where it was, where the water line was.
That's cool.
And
that's interesting.
Now the farms are down there.
Wow, that's cool.
And then also tying in family here, Keith's great grandpa dug his family out of poverty working for the building the Grand Coulee Dam.
Oh, great.
So,
well, I mean, so did thousands of people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
we'll
he's
get into
part of that story. So
that's awesome. Okay. You ready for the drama?
I love drama.
So there were two camps
that I'm not involved in.
Right. You could have been a old-timey Karen in this project.
Yeah. There are times when I'm pretty sure I would have been a Karen in these timelines.
So there were two camps here. The names for these are great. The pumpers.
Oh, and the dumpers.
Favored a dam with pumps to elevate water from the river into the Grand Coulee that could then be diverted via pipes and canals for irrigation.
Okay, makes sense.
The ditchers favored diverting water from the Pend Oreille River. Now, let me remind all of our listeners who do not live in Washington State, this is how you spell Pend Oreille. P-E-N-D, that's your pond.
E-R.
And then O-R-E-I-L-L-E. Pend Oreille.
Yeah.
That's how you say that.
Isn't it Pend Oreille?
I just say you say Pend Oreille.
I'm just kidding.
Don't make me question my pronunciation when I know I have it right. Then like nothing is real.
Corpse.
And the biggest, I do get to bring them up in this, and the biggest ditcher of all, the Washington Water and Power Company. A hydroelectric dam would destroy their grip on electric power. So to try to throw a wrench into the works of the Grand Coulee Dam project, in 1921, the WWPC got a permit to build a dam at Kettle Falls, about 110 miles upstream from the Grand Coulee. This would have blocked the construction of the Grand Coulee Dam, as it would have lain in the path of the reservoir. They also planted rumors in the newspapers stating that exploratory drilling at the Grand Coulee site found only clay and rock, no granite to support the dam. They even paid off General George Goethals, I think that's how you say it, one of the Panama Canal engineers, to prepare a report in support of their claims.
Oh, yes.
So shenanigans.
Paid witnesses.
Yep.
They're very reliable.
Obviously, if construction didn't get started until 1933, there were a ton of hurdles and steps to get this thing off the ground. President Harding was in support of the irrigation work, but died in 1923, and his successor, Calvin Coolidge, couldn't give a rat's ass about it. And the Bureau of Reclamation turned its attention to the Boulder Canyon project. Do you know what that is?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not pulling it up from the recesses of my mind.
AKA the Hoover Dam.
Oh, okay.
Because they needed a major success to bolster its reputation. People back east didn't support major irrigation projects in the West, as increased Western crops would depress the price of crops further in the East.
Mm-hmm. Didn't want to share the wealth.
Exactly. Even though people were starving, it's fine.
Yeah.
I guess this was the 1920s when they were really starting to try to get this dam going. So before the Depression. So it was still in the roaring 20s.
Right,
People were doing okay, I guess.
So they were trying to hoard the wealth.
Yep. So for the next 7 years, the project struggled through studies and reports and congressional sessions and more studies and more reports. And eventually, the dam supporters won, largely because of the Butler Report released by the Army Corps of Engineers in March of 1932.
Got to use the word.
I did. That showed that, speaking of the Army Corps of Engineers, the Portland Army Corps of Engineers has the best Instagram.
Oh, really?
They are so funny. And they're also the ones that put out the yearly calendar that's like cats and dogs like superimposed on corpse of engineer projects like dams and
Oh my gosh.
and there'll be like a corgi swimming in the reservoir, like a giant corgi or like a giant cat sitting on the edge of the dam. It's fantastic.
Making the corpse fun.
Yes. They put life into that corpse. Anyway, so this Butler report, it showed that the sale of electricity from the dam would offset the cost of delivering the irrigation water. Another impetus was the fact that the topsoil in the dry regions of the PNW was just blowing away. In April of 1931, pillars of dust reaching 5,000 feet into the sky swept down the Columbia Basin and out to the Pacific Ocean, where a cloud of... I wrote a cloud of ducks. It's a cloud of dust.
Dusty ducks.
Enveloped an ocean liner 600 miles from Seattle.
Wow.
There was also significant...
That's insane.
Yeah.
Think about that. Wow.
Think about a dust cloud 5,000 feet high. I mean, that's just taking over the sky.
Yeah, it had to be dark, I'd feel like.
Yeah. There was significant political pressure to get this dam project going.
Damn it.
Finally, in 1933, Washington State Governor Clarence Martin set up a commission to oversee the dam project, which now had $63 million in federal funding and $377 million from Washington State. Phew, we made it. Okay, now let's get into the dam itself after this quick break. A groundbreaking ceremony took place on July 16th, 1933. A senator, the governor, and the chief of the Sandpoil tribe all took part in the ceremonies. A few members of the Colville tribe looked on, and I can only imagine they were not very happy about this. And we'll get to that later. A consortium of 3 companies won the bid to build the dam in 1934, and I have to mention here, so they had a big thing where all these different companies could bid on the project. It was too big for one company to do it. But one of the bidders of the job was actress Mae West.
Oh, whoa.
And she told the engineers that if they had any problems, they should come up and see me sometime.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
At the time, there was next to nothing at the Grand Coulee site, just the river, rattlesnakes, and jackrabbits. There was just one gravel road and a few isolated ranches. So first off, they needed a town for workers. They named it Mason City in honor of one of the contractors, and it was designed to be the world's first all-electric city, in part to demonstrate the wonders of electricity and market the power generated by the dam. This town housed workers and some of their families, but many workers came without their families.
Yeah.
And
that's Keith's great grandpa did without his family. He walked there from like Spokane area.
Oh, wow. That's nuts. That's pretty far.
Because
it's in central
That's how desperate
Washington.
he was to make some money.
Wow. Okay, so like I said, many of the workers came without their families. And like any Wild West town, they needed entertainment after a long day of hard work.
Let me guess.
Mm-hmm.
There's booze and boobs.
Yep, you got it. And in fact, it was on a street called B Street.
Oh, Booze and Boob Street. Yes, that's that shortcut.
Of course, there was a street for that. B Street was the busiest street in the Columbia River Basin during the construction of the dam. This is where the construction workers came to spend their money and blow off some steam. It had dozens of saloons, and many featured upper floors where a man could pay for the company of a fun-loving woman. The buildings were ramshackle shacks along a...
Fun-loving woman.
We're just appeasing them there. I don't think she liked it. The buildings were ramshackle shacks along a mud lane and ran off of kerosene lamps, which burnt half the street down, not once, but twice. Sewage was channeled through the streets to a nearby canyon.
Oh, my goodness.
So you can imagine how that might smell.
This smells like the 1800s.
Yeah. But it was the 1900s.
I know, right? It's like they're
sounds like
going
the
back
1800s.
to when it was great again.
Yeah, exactly. It smells
their
like the
version
1800s.
of their version of Mega. Go back to when it was great again, when sewage ran through the streets
freely. We're trying to put it into any constraints.
Animals, humans, no matter.
Let that poop go where it needs to be.
Oh, I love our ad for our sewage company. Street funneling poo.
Beer was 10 cents a glass, and the sex workers were available for $2 for 20 minutes.
Well, at least they were more than the beer.
That's true. As in many similar work camps, venereal disease ran rampant, and the town of Grand Coulee actually required weekly checkups. Women also worked as taxi dancers. I'd never heard of this term before. Completely new for me. A taxi dancer is hired by a dance hall or similar venue to just dance with the patrons for a single dance or a set amount of time. So they would earn a commission on each ticket they collected. So tickets were 10 cents per dance, and the women would earn 5 cents. And this sometimes led to the term nickel hoppers.
Oh, interesting.
So literally just dancing, not sex work. I mean, maybe they negotiated sex work for later, but it was just
kind of like strippers
spinning around the strippers are not necessarily sex workers.
No, like they can negotiate for the back room type stuff.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
The back room does not mean sex. Always.
I mean, okay. Okay.
I like the term nickel hoppers though.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That make a good band name, nickel hoppers.
What kind of music?
It's got to be old timey now.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Is it organ pipes?
Yes.
Or just a piano playing?
Those ladies are showing their ankles. Hussies.
Wrist and ankles seen here.
By 1934, B Street was connected to sewer and electricity, thank goodness, encouraging more reputable businesses to move in. After the dam project finished, the businesses closed up one by one, although there are still a few original buildings left today, and they house other businesses. Probably not brothels, though.
No, probably not.
No. I'm sure there's a sex worker or two in that town still, but they don't hang a shingle.
No. It's a little, get yourself in trouble doing that now, huh?
Yeah. You know how I feel about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's never made sense to me that that's illegal. If you choose to do it.
The places in Vegas
business
that
is it of yours?
Regulate it are...
If I want to charge for that, mind your own business.
I was listening to a podcast. They were interviewing a woman who works at one of these places in Vegas. And she's telling about it. It's like very highly regulated.
Yes.
They do health checks constantly.
Yeah, you don't go into your room until you get one done.
They check the man. They make the man shower.
There's rules.
She was like, she loves her life.
That
she goes
most
for
of the time
2,
they're not working.
She goes for 2. Well, they make appointments.
Yeah.
This
like they have huge time periods off where they're with their families. And
yeah, she'll work for 2 weeks and then go home for 4 weeks. And that pays all of her bills. So she has kids. She just goes home as a mom.
Yep.
And she calls her clients her lovers.
Oh.
And she actually talks about how she feels like she has more of a therapeutic role.
Right.
Because she talks to them. And
I've seen that too. With people I've seen like on social media talking about they're doing that. And it does sound, they build friendships even.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading a couple books about prostitution in the West, and it's always been fairly bad for the women involved.
Right.
In our history. But they were talking about...
Maybe legalizing it would have been better for the women involved and then regulating it so that they're safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Taxing it. Paying for Hoover Dam or Grand Coulee Dam. Just kidding.
There's actually were several stories in these books about madams that would, and then the women that worked for them, they would have a customer who would get sick and they would take him soup and care for him.
Oh, wow.
Like these miners would come in, and when they're like, we haven't seen John and we know he didn't leave with, to go mine. And he would be lying in a bed on his death's door, and they would nurse him back to health.
Wow.
So, and sometimes the madams would just feed the desolate.
They had the compassion.
A lot. Some of them did not. Very human story. Okay. Also, before starting the dam project, there were a few more bits of housekeeping to finish. Over 700 Native American graves had to be relocated. Temporary fish ladders had to be constructed. And we'll get back to both of those points. This thing really is a marvel of engineering. It's one of the largest concrete structures in the world and is a gravity dam which relies on its own weight to resist the force of the water it controls. To prepare the site for this massive beast, more than 22 million cubic yards of soil and rock were blasted away.
Wow.
300 million board feet of lumber was cut from 50,000 acres of land in the prospective lake bottom. A 2-mile-long conveyor belt carried soil and rocks away from the site, around 52,000 cubic yards per day. Unfortunately, landslides occasionally dumped that dirt right back into the hole.
Mm-hmm.
In 1934, one incident dumped 1.5 million cubic yards right back into the site.
Wow, all that work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I imagine that's probably weeks worth of work at least, all down the hole.
Down the hole. At times, some of the excavated sites would collapse from overburden. So they came up with a really novel solution. 3-inch pipes were inserted into the foundation area to run refrigerated coolant through them, and it would freeze the earth and literally lock it in place.
Of that era. That is just crazy to me. I often think about building these giant structures that we have throughout the U.S., this included. Like, they didn't have the equipment that we have. They didn't have the research that we now have about things.
The materials we have now.
Materials that we have now.
The engineering that we have now.
The ability to do this with machinery more than human hands and body sacrifice. It is insane to me that these wonderful, it's still here today.
Yeah.
It's still here today.
Yep. It's crazy. So I'm not going to go deep into the details of the construction of the dam here because that would take like 3 hours.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast about engineering.
And there's many excellent documentaries out there. There's one by PBS. There's one by Modern Marvels, all about the building of the dam. So if you want to learn just about like the engineering of it and the actual physical building of it and everything that went into that, watch one of those. So I'm just going to hit some interesting facts, statistics about the dam. All right. So the dam is 550 feet high and contains 12 million cubic yards of concrete. With that much concrete, you could build a sidewalk 4 feet wide and 4 inches thick and wrap it around the equator twice.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking America, but you're saying
around the earth.
Oh, twice. The largest part of the earth, the equator. Like, that's the most miles. Wow.
That's nearly 4 times the amount of the Hoover Dam.
Oh, wow.
It is 5,223 feet long, so almost a mile long. The lake it created is called the Franklin D. Roosevelt Lake with an area of 82,300 acres. There are around 2,000 miles of cooling pipes embedded in the concrete. 2,000 miles.
That's insane.
They serve 2 purposes during construction. In cold weather, hot steam was circulated to keep the concrete from freezing. And in warm weather, coolant was pumped through. So as concrete cures, it actually generates heat. And the natural cooling process in a structure as large as the Coulee Dam would take centuries. So you pump refrigerated coolant through it.
To speed it up.
Yeah. The first of the dam's generators went online in 1941, and construction officially ended in November of the same year, 9 years after it began. More than 12,000 people were employed in the process. 72 died on the job, mostly from falling or having something fall on them.
Yeah. I remember Keith's grandmother, it was her father that did this, went and worked at Coulee Dam, told me stories about that. He lost friends. It was they worried about him all the time because of it.
Yeah, it was pretty dangerous.
Very.
Contrary to myth, none of those men are buried in the concrete. Workers were paid an average of 80 to 85 cents an hour, and women were only allowed to work in the dorms and the cookhouse. Skilled workers were paid $1.20 per hour, which was considered an excellent wage during construction.
So that's like your engineers, your supervisors,
Yeah, so not just the grunts. A 3-bedroom house in the town was about $32 per month to rent.
Wow. At 85 cents an hour.
So that's seems kind of expensive.
It's like your whole paycheck.
The dam became the nation's primary source of electricity during World War II. Today, it generates over 6,809 megawatts of electricity, enough power for about 2 million households.
So worth it.
Sure. It is the largest hydroelectric power plant in the U.S., more than 3 times the output of the Hoover Dam, but a far cry from the 3 Gorges in China, which puts out about 22,500 megawatts. So my dad actually went on the very last cruise that went down that river. I think it was the Yangtze River before it was dammed up.
Wow.
And so he was able to see some of these villages and
before they were
underwater.
Dried up or back on the other side. So that before they before they were destroyed.
And that dam is amazing. It is an engineering marvel. Now, if you talk about the impact on the people and the environment, a little bit different, but as far as
people be damned.
Goes, yes. The original structure cost $163 million, And a third power plant added in the 1970s cost $730 million.
Wow.
So inflation, one. And probably
sure.
just, you got cheap labor because
Right.
people were desperate for a job.
Right. Now we have probably some laws in place. You
Right.
have to
Exactly.
pay a certain amount for max out a certain amount of hours, blah, blah, blah.
Right. The spillway is rated at 1 million cubic feet per second. The dam contributes $2 billion annually, and that might be more now because this was from a resource that was a couple years old, to the economy through power production and irrigation.
How much?
$2 billion.
Wow.
It helps over 60 different types of crops grow across about 670,000 acres. So that's
So just imagine what Washington State would be without this, like a desert-ish type place, lot less produce.
Well, it was this
or
is
agriculture.
Central and Eastern Washington is already a desert.
Right, but I mean,
So-
now you drive through and you see the crop lines
Right.
and all that where you wouldn't if you didn't have this.
Yeah, there's pros and cons though.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into the cons.
All right.
And that's it for the fun facts. And you say, but Shay, I hear some people saying you haven't addressed the negative impact of the dam.
Oh, I wasn't even going there. I guess I'm in a positive mood today.
Yes, you're a very positive person, and I'm here to ruin things for you. I'm going to ruin
that's
the
right.
dam.
Shay ruins everything.
And I will be ruining this dam right after the short break. Okay, you guys know me. I love a story with a dark side. So let's get into it.
Dark side Shay.
Now, back in the day, the taming and harnessing of the natural world was highly praised. An undammed river was regarded as a natural resource going to waste. The Bonneville Power Administration even hired folk singer Woody Guthrie to promote federal dams. He spent a month traveling around the Columbia Basin, writing 26 songs in 30 days.
Wow.
Such as Roll on Columbia, Roll, which was later adopted as the Washington State song, and the Ballad of the Grand Coulee, in which he celebrated the government's harnessing of the wild and wasted stream. He saw the river as much more than a stream. He saw the river as wasting its potential by being allowed to travel unfettered to the Pacific Ocean, and dams as a triumph of man over nature. Unfortunately,
Must be conquered.
Must be
conquered. Nature needs
Damn
conquered.
that dam.
No, damn nature.
Damn nature. Unfortunately, as per usual, we went too far. By the late 20th century, there were more than 250 dams on the Columbia River.
Yeah, I was thinking that there's so many.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There were less than 50 miles of free-flowing water left on its 1,240-mile length. As HistoryLink.org put it, the Columbia had become less of a river than a series of flabby reservoirs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The price of all this progress had to be paid by someone. About 400 farms and 10 communities of between 3,000 and 4,000 people had to be relocated, paid a pittance by the government for their land.
Of course.
That temporary fish ladder that I mentioned earlier didn't mean they were going to build a permanent one. It was abandoned. The Grand Coulee Dam has no fish ladder or way for migrating fish to pass the dam. The dam eradicated wild salmon runs on the Upper Columbia.
Wow.
And with it, the way of life that had sustained the Native American population for thousands of years. The waters flooded ancient villages, burial grounds, and destroyed fishing spots. Around 2,000 members of the Colville Confederated Tribes and 250 of the Spokane tribe were also displaced.
Were these reservations we gave them and now we're taking back by flooding them? Okay.
Yeah, they had to redo treaty negotiations.
Wow.
Or just straight up violate them.
Right.
Virtually no studies were done on the environmental impact.
Oh, really?
Wow. On
All
fish.
this engineering studies to make sure this could be done and no environmental impact study.
On the fish.
On the fish.
I don't know what
see.
other kind of studies they did, but for the fish, no. There was no studies done on the impact on the Native American communities that had called the Basin home for thousands of years. The government violated treaty promises to the tribes when they developed the dams along the Columbia. The tribes lost much of their land and their way of life, resulting in a profound cultural decline. It wasn't until 2024, under the Biden administration, that the government finally acknowledged the harms that the dam and other dams along the Columbia did to local tribal communities and fish. Biden created the Columbia River Task Force, co-chaired by the Department of the Interior, Department of Energy, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Other agencies represented on the task force include the Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Agriculture, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Transportation, the Office of Management and Budget, and the White House Council on Environmental Quality, which probably doesn't exist anymore. The task force mission
Recently abolished, I'm sure.
was to work with tribes to help restore fish stocks within the basin over the next decade. So this was something positive. They were trying to make some amends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there's Republicans out there that are screaming about Biden
Amends.
being a woke.
Right. How dare we acknowledge the
harms
destruction
that
we
we've
did
done and try to do something.
to entire communities.
Right.
Rude.
So this is from their website. The Columbia River Task Force coordinates efforts across federal agencies to implement several historic agreements that together advance efforts to restore wild salmon, steelhead, and other native fish populations. Expand tribally sponsored clean energy production. That's an important one to realize. They were trying to expand other clean energy production methods than hydroelectric dams. And ensure the management of the Columbia River meet the needs and priorities of the region's communities. So remember when we had a government that cared about the environment and the people?
Right. I know. Right.
Those were the days.
And a government that took so long to get them to care.
Mm-hmm.
And now, just wait. Snap of the fingers.
Well, just wait.
Boom.
It gets
Gone.
worse.
Mm-hmm.
Trump cut $1.5 billion from the Army Corps of Engineers. And this included a 46% reduction in funding to the Columbia River Task Force. That's over $30 million lost. So screw those salmon. Joe Biden also had signed a deal that would have removed 4 of the hydroelectric dams along the river, furthering the task force's mission. But of course, Donald canceled that deal. Just another broken promise. And are we surprised?
No.
The deal was part of a plan to build new sources of energy, which you would think Dump Truck would want, since he proclaimed that he wanted to unleash American energy dominance, what stupid wording, by the way.
He just wants oil. Coal.
Yes.
Coal.
But canceling this deal reduces new energy production. So it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. He also signed some dumb executive order to, quote, restore American seafood competitiveness, but revoking this agreement canceled the millions of dollars that were supporting programs to increase fish populations.
This is classic across the board behavior. I want this result, so I'm going to enact this legislation or executive action that will absolutely create a world where that can't happen. My result I'm looking for in so many ways. It's insanity. It's insanity.
It's a dictator playbook one way.
I can't figure out the goal.
What a dumb. I hate him so much. I'm not going to pussyfoot it around anymore.
No.
If we lose followers because I'm saying this, I don't care.
I don't care.
He's evil and he's destroying our country.
Yes. I mean, we are past the day where this is a political opinion. This is morals.
Yes, this is morals. He's evil. He's a bad person. I don't understand
100%.
how any Christians can support him.
They just have to look the other way.
Okay, I'm going to calm down. My face got really hot.
They have to hear from a church official or somebody in their community tell them it's okay to look the other way, and then they will look the other way.
I don't get it. Okay. I didn't realize a boring story about a dam was going to lead to a rant.
Damn
did
it.
you? Okay.
History always leads to a rant. It is so impossible to cover history and not have it touch on today
Right.
and how we got here, which is infuriating at the moment.
So anyway, also, the dam helped to fund death on an industrial scale. You want to know how? So while the electricity from the dam flowed to multiple defense-related industries in the PNW, like shipyards, aluminum plants, etc., and arguably helped us win World War II, there was a big chunk of the power being diverted to an isolated area in southeastern Washington. What might this be?
What is that? That's not Hanford, is it?
It was so secret at the time that few of those who built this facility knew what it was. It was the Hanford nuclear site, which was tasked with producing plutonium to build the atomic bomb. The Columbia River was a perfect place to work on an atomic bomb. It got inexpensive electricity from the Grand Coulee Dam, and producing plutonium and uranium required a ton of power, and the river could be used to cool the reactors. On August 9th, 1945, The United States dropped an atom bomb on Nagasaki, Japan that contained plutonium produced in the Hanford nuclear reservation, powered by electricity from the Grand Coulee Dam. And that's all I'm going to say there, because the Hanford nuclear site needs to be just
a whole nother story.
Episode.
I mean, it just continues to leak and we just walk around like it ain't happening.
Yep.
It is insane.
So now I don't want the story to end as a complete bummer for all those people who didn't turn us off when I was ranting a couple minutes ago. I found a little story that made me chuckle.
Okay.
Okay.
We need a chuckle.
So in April of 1938, John Sikovich, a well-known monument maker from Colville, how did I just say Colville? Coolville was commissioned by the Grand Coulee American Legion to build a monument honoring those who died during construction.
Huh.
A large and beautiful monument was planned, the most beautiful in the state. A granite column with a shaft.
A shaft?
10 feet tall.
It was probably 6.
Depends on you're measuring it from the base or the monument or the plaque. 5 tons with a plaque on each side for the names of the deceased. It was going to be awesome. Copper programs for the dedication ceremony were sold to gather funds for the project. John collected a $200 deposit and set to work. He reordered the beautiful Georgia granite and worked day and night to complete it. It only took him a week from receiving the stone to finish the project. The shaft ended up at 10.5 feet tall, 6 feet wide at the base. That's where the balls are.
So we are including the base.
And weighed over 7 tons. Shrouded in the deepest secrecy, he delivered the monument to Grand Coulee on May 25th, 1938. Remember that date. And presented a bill for $1,725, which is around $39,000 today.
Okay.
So fairly big bill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was probably most of what he expected for money that year, you know. The plan was to unveil the monument on Memorial Day with the governor presiding. But by June of 1939,
wow, that's a long time later, isn't it?
a year later,
Oh, okay.
John still had not been paid for the job. He warned the Legion that if he wasn't paid soon, he would remove the monument. The Legion claimed that the Legion commander had disappeared with the funds collected and asked for a little more time. So John agreed to wait until the 1st of July. But by June of 1940,
Oh my gosh.
he still hadn't been
This
paid.
poor man.
They finally offered him $500 for the monument.
500.
Not like a third.
Yeah.
John was not happy. He said, if I'm going to give this beautiful piece of statuary away, I'd rather see it come to Stevens County rather than let it stay at the dam. And so John and his son Jack, along with 2 other men, took a flatbed truck and a hoist, drove up to the monument,
Nice.
loaded it up on the truck, and just drove away with it.
Nice. Good for you, John.
They brought rifles in case they encountered resistance, but nobody bothered them. They set it up in front of the courthouse in Colville, Stevens County. The county ended up paying about $750 for it, so they got a bargain. It still stands there today with a plaque saying it was dedicated to Stevens County war veterans. So what do we take from all of this? That progress comes with a price, and too often, it's someone else who pays it.
Yeah.
The Grand Coulee Dam lit up cities, powered wartime industries, and gave us the illusion that we could conquer nature without consequence. But the salmon never came back. The burial grounds remain underwater, and the government only admitted the damage decades too late. Maybe the lesson isn't about dams or energy, but about who gets heard, who gets steamrolled, and what history chooses to remember. And that's it.
Yeah, I was thinking progress always comes with sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And when is the sacrifice worth the progress and when is it not? And to who?
Yep.
I mean, it's like that at any function we're doing, right?
Yep. There has to be a balance.
I mean, I see it in healthcare all the time. If you want to fix a problem, you break one somewhere else down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad. And you got to figure out where that sacrifice is worth it and who gets to do the sacrificing. Yep. It's sad.
Yep, exactly.
Progress, good and bad.
Yeah. So thanks again for listening to this episode. I know it wasn't as lighthearted as our silly summer season episodes, but
we're getting real around here.
Yeah. So, and if you liked it, please do us a favor, write us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you can leave a review. It helps us more than you know. And if you really want to support the show, consider joining us on Patreon. As a thank you to our supporters, we're starting something special, bespoke fan fiction starring our beloved patrons. That's right. Every month, we'll pick a random episode and a random patron and write a ridiculous, dramatic, and probably cursed story featuring you in the world of one of our past topics. It's chaotic. It's fun. And you don't want to miss it.
Dun.
All right. This story is a bit of fan fiction that I wrote to thank our fabulous patron, Matt Pearson, who not only has been a supporter of the show for quite some time, but has recently increased his monthly contribution. So thank you, Matt. Basically, every few episodes, we'll be writing a bespoke story about our patron supporters based on our past episodes, chosen by using a random number generator. So if you want to be the star of the story, consider joining our Patreon. If you're already a patron, send us an email with some fun facts about you. Okay, so today our story is based on episode 48, Murder, Mystery, and Hollywood Tragedy. In this episode, we welcomed our pod friend, Ani from Audibly Haunted, to talk about 2 ghost stories from our respective regions. First, I dove into the sad and creepy story of the Lady of the Lake. Holly Ellingsworth was murdered by her husband and thrown into Washington's Lake Crescent. When they discovered her body 3 years later, it had saponified. Her ghost is said to haunt the lake. And Ani brought us the tragic story of Peggy Entwistle, an up-and-coming young actress from the golden era of 1930s Hollywood, who threw herself from the Hollywood sign after being cut out of a film that she had just acted in. Her ghost is said to haunt the sign. Do you remember that one?
Yes, absolutely.
We were recording at the beach house.
Yes, it was a very fun episode to record. I don't know how fans felt, but I loved it. I love Ani, too.
I know. I haven't talked to her in a while. I just want to say I had an absolute blast writing this story, and I hope you all like it. This was only my second attempt in my adult life at like a full creative writing project. So
I'm so excited for this mission we're on. I think it's going to be super fun for us to be creative. And I think it's going to be super fun to incorporate our listeners, our fans in our work. And I'm so excited about this.
It's very fun. You guys, if you are a patron and you want a certain style of story,
or even an episode that you really liked that you want to be part of.
We do that. If you're like, I really like that one, write me into it. We can do that as well. Okay.
I wished I was there. Put me there.
Here we go. This is Ghostly Encounters featuring Matt Pearson, based on episode 48, Murder, Mystery, and Ghostly Encounters with Ani from Audibly Haunted. Matt Pearson was having a terrible day. Actually, he'd been having a pretty terrible year. In fact, let's face it, the whole decade had been the pits.
I've had that happen.
But today was pretty terrible. Matt found himself lying on the splintery floorboards of the Lake Crescent boathouse, cradling his bruised ribs and wondering where he went wrong. Seriously, he really didn't want anything to do with ghosts again. Every time he saw one, his life went south. The 1930s were no cakewalk. The Great Depression brought the parties and opulence of the Roaring '20s to a screaming halt. Life was tough for millions of Americans, and especially challenging for those in the entertainment industry. The country was dust-covered and hollow-eyed. No one was going to choose attending a play or a movie over putting food on the table. And that's the pickle barrel where Matt found himself drowning in early 1932. Matt grew up in Tacoma, where the rain taught him rhythm. But Matt was tired of the endless bullying by the jocks as he practiced with the marching band in the stadium bowl. Tired of being stuffed into his locker with his tuba. Tired of fishing his spit-soaked spectacles out of the Bellavance instrument.
This poor guy. I want to be friends with this poor kid.
Tired of the farty, fishy stench of 1930s Tacoma. Matt had dreams, and by golly, he wanted more. He wanted fame. As he gazed out of the leaded glass of the school cafeteria at Commencement Bay. You see, I put him in Stadium High School.
Oh, yeah.
I was just there last night for hours. As he gazed out of the leaded glass of the school cafeteria at Commencement Bay, visions of his music swelling under the dramatic gaze of Clark Gable filled his head. He wanted to be the sound behind the silver screen. So, the day after his 18th birthday, Matt boarded a bus heading for the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles, with nothing but a tuba, 3 pressed shirts, and a pocket full of ambition.
Tubas, pick a smaller instrument to travel with, man.
Yeah, Matt. This is actually factual about Matt. He plays the tuba.
Oh my goodness.
This is why there's a tuba in this story. Pick a smaller instrument, Matt.
Definitely.
Actually, that's pretty impressive, though.
Yeah.
Like, the tuba is a dedication.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
You don't just, like, choose that as your leftover.
I mean, I feel like you have to have a forklift with you, not a backpack.
Right. Los Angeles wasn't what he imagined it to be. Far from the sparkling urban landscape he had read about in pulp magazines, it was dingy, dirty, and overflowing with broken dreams. Every day he passed the big studio lots on his way to work, a gleaming barrier between him and his dreams. It turns out, one doesn't just stroll up to the gate of the Paramount and start playing the tuba. You had to claw your way through a gauntlet. Every morning he collected yesterday's paper from the dustbin outside his dark and shabby bedsit and scoured the wanted ads looking for a position with a pit orchestra for a stage musical, a radio station orchestra, or even with a house dance band. He knew that the LA Philharmonic was completely out of his grasp. To make ends meet, he found a job bussing tables at the famous Frolic Room. The hours were crap, the pay was lousy, but the fleeting glimpses he got of the likes of Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland were enough to make up for it. And then he met Peggy. She was luminous, funny, and absolutely tragic. They bonded after she knocked a tub full of champagne glasses out of his hands as she was gesticulating wildly with the hand that grasped her bejeweled cigarette holder. As the tub flew out of his grasp, time seemed to slow down as their eyes met, his full of panic and hers full of bemused surprise. She recklessly tried to help him sweep up the glittering shards of glass, and her careless laugh had him smitten. Later, as he took his smoke break in the alley behind the lounge, he jumped as a warm breath tickled his ear from behind. "Hey, sailor."
Ooh, up close and personal.
"Got a light?" Did I just make you horny?
I did like it. I'll say that.
From that point on, Matt just about floated to work every day, high on the hope of running into her. Peggy was a promising young actress who had recently wrapped up production on a fairly large film. She practically glowed with star quality. Peggy, for her part, thought he was a cute but odd young man and took a sisterly shine to him. A few weeks later, she helped him snag a spot playing with the house band. It looked like, with Peggy's help, that his own star was on the rise. For a brief moment, he felt like he just might make it. Then she was gone. Just like that. One step off the H of the Hollywood sign and into the tabloid pages. His world turned upside down. Every night after he emptied his spit valve and lovingly placked his big old horn into her worn case. Sorry, Matt. He would hang his jacket over one shoulder, push his hat back on his head, and trudge up the slope from Griffith Park to the base of the Hollywood sign. He just wanted to feel close to her. She had brought life and laughter back into his bleak existence. And then she was gone. He would sit on the hill, eat an apple, and tell her about his day. But one night, she answered, "Hey, sailor, got a light?" He looked up from his melancholy inspection of the ends of his wingtips, and there she was. Her white dress clung to her generous curves like mist. Her eyes were no longer cornflower blue. They shone silver like the moon. Matt didn't scream. He just said, "Figures," and walked back down the hill. The next morning, he packed his meager belongings into his tuba case and caught the first bus back to Tacoma. He was done with Hollywood. By 1936, Matt was a very different person. No longer the starry-eyed dreamer who had skipped aboard the bus to Hollywood. At the ripe old age of 22, Matt had seen some shit. He had a string of menial jobs in Tacoma, short order cook at Knapp's, department store Santa at Woolworth's. In the summer, he'd go down to the dock next to Point Defiance Park to get day labor on a boat collecting logs that had broken free of the massive jams heading to the pulp mills in the port. 2 evenings a week, he'd join the house band at the Winthrop Hotel, and on the weekends, he'd play for Drunken Brothers down at the Elks Club. I don't know if you noticed me tying in a bunch of our episodes.
I was going to say, yeah. I feel familiar with all of this.
In the summer of 36, Matt followed a girl named Ethel out to Lake Crescent, nestled in the dark woods of the Olympic Forest, and landed a job at the Singer's Lake Crescent Tavern, flipping burgers for the early dinner service. As soon as his shift ended, he would fling off his greasy apron and exchange it for his one and only suit. It was fairly shabby and threadbare, but in the flickering light of the fireplace in the lodge's living room, you couldn't tell. The firelight made his tuba glow orange and red as he tooted along with the band.
And tooted along.
For the well-to-do guests that were staying in... Sorry, Matt.
I can't tell which end this air is coming from.
They tooted along with the band for well-to-do guests that were staying in the lodge's cabins, the air cozy and cedar-scented. And it was there that he met Holly Illingworth. Although Holly didn't exude the star quality of Peggy, she had a sweet demeanor and sad eyes that didn't match her carefree laugh. She was a waitress in the restaurant on the same shift as Matt. And after she had hung up her apron for the night, she would often sit in the back of the room to listen to Matt and the band play, waiting for her brute of a husband to pick her up if he was sober enough, or waiting till one of the other waitresses was done with her shift and could give her a ride home. Sometimes, when the crowd thinned and the band took a break, Holly would lean against the piano as Matt emptied his spit valve, sipping watered-down gin and talking about her dream of running away to Ireland. "I just want to get lost in one of those amazing old pubs," she'd say wistfully. "I'd love to drink something warm and listen to a fiddler who's seen some shit." "I bet I'd like Ireland too," Matt would reply. "Seems like real tuba country over there."
Oh my gosh.
Matt began to become a sympathetic ear for Holly. She'd often show up with a black eye or wear long sleeves to cover the fingerprint-shaped bruises on her arms. Her third husband, Monty, was a beer truck driver who liked the ladies almost as much as he liked the whiskey. When he wasn't working, he was at a bar or would disappear for 2 days and show up with lipstick on his collar, reeking of booze and cheap perfume. "I just know he's going to kill me someday," Holly would confess to Matt. But when he gently tried to coax her to leave the bastard, she shuddered. "He'd come after me. There's no escape." When Holly disappeared just before Christmas in 1937, Matt knew. Monty would stumble into the bar, smelling like the bottom of a keg, and yell about how the whore ran off with some schmuck. But he didn't seem too sad about it. Every few days, you'd see a different woman sneaking out of Monty's cheap hotel that he lived in, shoes in hand, looking regretful. Then, one night as he was walking along the edge of the lake after finishing his last set at the lodge, he saw her. She was walking across the glassy surface of the lake, and even though it was a moonless night, she was glowing with an inner silver light. She was mouthing something he couldn't hear. He immediately went back to the bar and downed 3 whiskeys in a row. The next night, he saw her again. This time, she was closer. He could hear what she was trying to say. "Tell them," she whispered. And so he tried. He went to the local sheriff and told him about Holly's black eyes and bruises. He told the cook, the bartender, even the elderly saxophone player, Earl. "She's in the lake," Matt insisted. But 2 nights later, Matt was hauling a stinking bag of trash to the dumpster next to the boathouse when he found himself jerked rudely into the dark interior. Before he knew what was happening, he found himself airborne for the first time in his life. His breath was rudely knocked from his body as he hit the splintery floorboards. And before he had a chance to yell out, a wingtip shoe buried itself in the soft flesh of his belly. Monty, red-faced and sweating, loomed over Matt as he curled around his throbbing belly. "If you know what's good for you, you'll keep your stinking trap shut. Next time I see you, I'll punt your head like a football." And Matt Pearson had decided that he'd had enough. No more tragic women who could haunt him. He was done. These days, Matt lives in Iowa. On Tuesdays, he plays his tuba down at the senior center. He tells the same stories to anyone who will listen about Peggy, the stars that he almost got close enough to touch, about Holly, and about the time he accidentally dropped a spit valve on Frank Sinatra's shoe. Most folks just smile and nod. But sometimes, on quiet, moonless nights, he'll feel a tickle of cold breath on his neck and hear a soft, almost imperceptible giggle. On those nights, he'll slip on his shoes and walk along the shores of Big Spirit Lake, knowing that he'll see a feminine figure in a waitress uniform gliding along the glassy surface of the lake, glowing with her own silver light. The end.
Nicely done. Bum, bum, bum.
Okay, Matt, that was for you and your
Matt.
tuba.
And your tuba with a spit valve. That is like why I don't like the horn section. It is so disgusting. And you mentioned it like 10 times.
Well, even when I played the clarinet, like the clarinet,
Yes,
the
so gross.
woodwinds
Yes, the
have that
woodwinds.
reed, and you have to like soak it with spit.
Yes,
You
yes.
literally put it in your mouth.
I had the flute. That was enough for me. Like it was
So
1 year and
underneath the little, I don't remember what they're called, but the little like, I guess they're the keys or whatever.
Yeah.
That would cover the hole. Pink stuff would grow.
Yes. Yes.
You had to clean out the
Yes.
inside
The
of
whole
your
thing's so
clarinet would be covered in goop because you're constantly spitting into it.
Yeah.
Sorry. We appreciate that you are a creative person who is musical and plays the tuba. That's an unusual instrument. It's very cool.
It's
but
just one of those things that you
all
have to
of
forget
instruments where you have to
exists and
spit
enjoy
into them
it.
are kind of
I just forget it exists and I enjoy it. And then there's Shay who ruins
This just remembers to bring up the spit. Sorry, Matt. We appreciate your patronage. Thank you so much.
Yes,
and again,
thank you, Matt.
If you want your own story, you can join our Patreon. And then if you are already currently a patron, why don't you send me an email at Shea, SHEA, rainydayrabitholes.com. Tell me a few things about you that you would like to be in the story. And hopefully you're okay if we maybe make it a little bit fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell me if you want to be the villain or the hero, or if you don't care. Like this, he was just the tragic figure.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And we will see you next time. And
See you down the rabbit hole.
I feel like my microphone
It's drifting.
is,
It's
I was
flaccid.
like,
It's definitely got
it's got a list to the side, though.
it's maybe a blue pill.
Oh, where was I? Hold on. I have to pick my underwear out of my butt.
Please include that in the story.